And
Mm-hmm.
so trying to hold on to some of those individual things as the week in general was a little bit disappointing.
Even another person that I want to shed some light on is Trey Jones. You might look at the numbers and see 6, 7, and 4 on 2 for 5 shooting, and like that's like meh kind of numbers, like decent bench production. But I feel like that it still adds to the fact that like seeing 7 assists from Trey and like not necessarily like a crazy amount of time. Every now and then he's on the floor with DJ, which means that he's not the primary ball handler. Um, and still seeing that he's like been able to like make opportunity for himself when he's on the court has been something that I like to see.
Yeah.
Um, because it just shows that like is like it's the same thing. To me, it was kind of like the same thing with Lonnie. But to a lesser extent, I think people aren't nearly as harsh on Trey as they are on Lonnie, given like the years and where they are age wise and all that kind of stuff. But it's like Trey is just like also kind of taken to heart like the I could be replaced at any moment type of mentality, and I feel like he's definitely stepped it up a lot more these last couple weeks, um,
Yeah, and
past the Derek White trade.
Trey, it was the Sacramento game, right, where he played a lot in that second half. He got real extended minutes that day, and for the most part, I don't think that he, like, I guess in an instance like that, you want to see like, does him being on the floor? Do you ever feel like he overstays his welcome, right? Where he kind of gets past his usefulness, right? Um, and I think we rode that line pretty okay. I mean, I know it's hard to say that like when we lost the game, but like I think there was one time where he got fouled and ended up taking some free throws. And I think if it would have been anybody else taking free throws, he probably would have got pulled at that time. And that would have been like the perfect time to yank him. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure Pop made it a point to not have Keldon Johnson to close the game. I think he was pretty uh, displeased with him or something. Yeah, because he didn't finish the game, right? He didn't suit up, and he came out really aggressive that next game. So it's pretty safe to say he was probably not happy with Keldon that day. But yeah, like you said, he was able to find some good opportunities. I was a little disappointed. I wrote it down in my notes too for that Sacramento game. It's like with Keita Bates-Diop and with Trey Jones, and I think there might have even been a time where they were both on the floor at the same time. There's just moments where our offense goes right back to looking like last year's, where it's like kick out to Trey. What's the word? Very palpable, very visual hesitancy to shoot the ball, right? Like you can just feel it, and it's like, aren't we? Like I wrote it in my notes. I'm like, aren't we past this already? Like what are we doing out here? If you get the ball, shoot the ball. If it's the shot, like I thought we already decided that. You know what I mean? So those are the things that like I would like to see get gone. Or it's like as we're making this slow grind and this slow push towards like a more complete team, which we knew was going to take multiple seasons. It's just like it's these are the growing pains, I guess, right? That we got to make our way through.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. One thing that I want to ask you guys, just because I brought it up on Twitter the other night, and it's just kind of come a little apparent to me. But how do you guys feel about like Doug being on the court when he's just not hitting his shots? I brought up the question of like in a sense kind of giving him the Bryn treatment. And in that sense, just if he's not hitting his shots, then he can't really be on the floor. But I want to get your guys' opinion on that and see where y'all go with that before we go into the next segment.
I mean, I feel like it's people always complain about like Pop's rotations and when he pulls and puts people on the court, but I don't know. I've never got the sense that he just lets people go out there when they're playing bad. He does not play people when they're playing bad. Um, it doesn't matter if you're a star player. And I I believe Doug. I agree with you, Jake. Like the Brent stuff, I believe Doug got like the benefit of the doubt to start the year because he was like a new player. But I always said like at the beginning of the year, like everybody was attacking Bryn and like he was a scapegoat for our bad defense or miscommunications. And it's like when Doug's not hitting shots, like he literally is the same exact thing. He's just out there and he catches it, he dribbles, he throws it to somebody else. And I don't know if his contract is going to be like worth it to keep him like around the team if like that's like where he's going to be, especially with like the emergence of Keldon. But at the same time, you need shooters. I would like a Doug McDermott off the bench to space the floor for like other guys. And if the lineups end up being like next year, like at like starting DeJounte, Devin, Keldon, like 1, 2, 3, and then we have a 4 like we draft, then Doug's coming off the bench. I think that would be fine. But as far as like Doug being on the court when he's not hitting shots, I agree. He's not doing anything besides like the threat of shooting, and then it's one of those 0 for 4, 0 for 5 nights. He's not like Devin or Lonnie where they go 0 for 8, 0 for 9, but he's definitely had some cold nights where he just can't get anything to fall. But at the same time, he's like top 5 in 3-point shooting this year. So the same,
Yeah.
like right up there with Keldon. So that's why like I don't mind having him on the team. But there are times where it's just like when the shot's not falling that night, and like we're getting like abused defensively by switching and just like bigger guys.
Right. Right. And I mean, yeah, like you said, I pretty much agree with that. That's pretty much where my mindset has been. I guess like the only counterpoint to me in my head is like we kind of talked about it the last couple years before, where it's like you're paying this guy how much money for him to get put in a reduced role. I feel like we do that a lot with our signings. And like the first person that comes to my head is like seeing like DeMar Carroll getting paid $14 million to not even get minutes for our team. And it's just like stuff like that where I guess like and nowadays like the money sense doesn't necessarily matter as much as it kind of used to, but it's still the mindset of are we really going to be paying a guy like Doug 15, 16, 17 to just shoot off the bench to do what we were doing with Bryn but for 1 million, you know? And
He's only getting 13 a year.
13 a year?
Yeah.
Either way, 13, I mean, 13 isn't the 15, 16, 17 like I said, but it was still 13 million, and 13's a lot more than the minimum that we were giving Bryn. So,
Well, Brandon was getting like 4.5 this year. And people weren't happy with his production pay, even though that's all he was coming to do was just hit threes for us, and he wasn't even playing big minutes, and people still hated him, and that's what I'm saying. People like find ways to hate these guys, and that's their job is 3-point shooters, spacers. They're not asking them to go out there and shut people down. You just ask him to go hit some threes, and they blame like Bryn and like it's the whole team that's just bad defensively. We're just too small. We get thrown around. We can't get offense. We can't get defensive rebounds, and then people just go, "All right, well, look, it's that guy's problem." But it's the whole team, and I get what you're saying about like the reduced role. You don't want to keep like pay Doug and then have him just come off the bench and play 10, 15 minutes a night. You'd rather use that money for a player that's going to be playing 25 minutes a night. But that's where he's at right now. He's around that 24 minutes a game, and for now, I think he's earned his contract if he just shoots. I wish he would shoot threes more. I don't understand why he doesn't just let it fly all the time. Even like to just start the game if he's missing a couple. I feel like we've had like games where we've started out like running plays for him, and like we try to get him going early as opposed to literally anybody else in the lineup. But I think if Devin can become the 3-point shooter we need him to be, anywhere near that 38 to 40% range, it can make Doug expendable
yeah.
going forward. Eventually, you could like find a way to move him around or get something else, get a bigger player, whatever you need.
Even Keldon getting jumping his percentage up way high to where it is now. I agree with you. It's the same thing. It just feels like it makes Doug a little more on that expendable side. Like we got the shooters around DJ, we got the shooters around Yak. We can move it around to where we don't have Doug on the floor with those guys because they need the shooters, you know. But Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into our next point, because now we finally have seen these guys in a near what 60 games. I'm pretty sure we're 60 games into the season. So like how do we see these guys now? Like you were saying, Juan, at the beginning of the season, we were giving Doug the pass, but now we've seen him in 50 to 60 games, and now we kind of understand where his value is. But is there any other guys that y'all would see like getting their value has been like raised up from this season? Guys that you've seen that their value is lowered? Chris, you didn't really get to talk about Doug, so I want to hear what you have to say on this value.
Well, I mean, well, first of all, I agree with what you guys are saying. And I'll just add that, like, to me, all of those the issues or the whatevers that we're having makes it feel worse for the point of view that he's taking up our power forward position. If he was in the exact same performance wise, but he was at the 3, and we just had somebody there at the 4, I would feel a lot less. And I still agree with you guys. I think that he's kind of earned his numbers for the year. And I do think that, like, the same way with Bryn, like, we knew exactly what we were trying to get out of Bryn anyway. I don't think that I think the team knew exactly what they wanted. I think Bryn knew exactly the same thing, which was that we're going to bring you in for a little bit of money. We're going to have you here for a little bit, let you get some things going, and then we're going to look to move you. Like, I think that everybody knew that was his role. So with Doug, I think everybody knows that his role, like, he is one of the few like veterans, you know what I mean? He's an older player. So that does bring some value with losing Patty and Rudy and DeMar, right? So he's not getting paid that much money. It's on a 3-year deal. We can reevaluate how we want to move forward with you after this first year. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't think that anything's really changed. I think they had like at least this is our vision for you for this whole first year, and then we'll see where it's going from then. So I don't think that they've really wavered with how they're trying to use him. But I agree. Like, when he's not hitting shots, it makes me wish we had somebody to replace him. Here's the thing: is we just don't really have that person yet. So he is pretty secure. As soon as we get any power forward, keyword power, I'm ready to move on or move him to the bench, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, he is a, I wouldn't say expendable, but I'll just say like a flexible player. You know what I mean? He's still, I think he'll still have value, but yeah, if we can spell his production with a little bit of KJ and Vassell and maybe Lonnie, then at that point next year our guys are 1 year older. Maybe we don't need his veteran presence as much anymore. You know what I mean? Like, those things, they just start to diminish over time. So, like, I'm fine with where he is right now, but moving forward. But yeah, in terms of just kind of reevaluating like our players, like, I'm just gonna keep saying the same thing about, like, I'm just disappointed. Like, at the end of last year, I was looking to the draft like, okay, good, we're gonna rebolster our power forward position. We're gonna like, that was a huge hole for us, and we patched it up in like at best, right? I mean, Keita Bates Diop isn't okay. He is more of like what the traditional 4 looks like. He's just not fast, and he just doesn't shoot the ball outside with any kind of confidence, and like, so, like, his size is okay. That's not where I'm worried about, but like his play style, we run into holes all the time with him out there. Same thing with Zach. Like, Zach Collins, like, in terms of where we have him, I do not want him as a center. Like, he's not cutting it out as a center. I would be very happy to see what it looks like trying him out next to Jakob and just getting him to move around a little bit more. But relying on him to be any kind of post presence is just, it's not going to be what I want. And I could already feel it. So I'm hoping that like isn't a plan for our future. I would much rather see us go for stronger options at the center position as well. And I guess those are like the 3 guys that kind of like currently are in my radar is Doug, KBD, and Zach. And not to say like I want them gone or I want them cut or anything like that, but it's just like, reevaluating how we're going to be using him. You know what I mean? Like I really feel like we need to be stronger at the power forward position. You know what I mean? We need to be stronger in general on the 4 at the 5. And Jock is not strong enough yet. Zach's not strong enough yet. KBD's not big enough. Doug at the power forward is ridiculous to me. You know. So, anyways, somebody else start talking.
Yeah, no, and I think the Charlotte game is kind of the biggest example as to why we do need more size, why those guys don't necessarily cut it right there, because I feel like Miles Bridges did whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to, and then whenever Zach was out there against Trez, he got cooked. I think like that whole first half, that like Montrezl Harrell was just doing whatever he wanted to against Zach Collins. And I guess that's the only thing that I had to say for Zach Collins. To what you're saying is like I don't think he could run the 4 because he'd be too slow to run in transition against a guy like Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges would eat up Zach Collins in transition. Maybe in a half court setting, he wouldn't.
Our whole team switches everything anyway. They just pick up whoever the fuck they want, and I don't know how many times we run ourselves into mismatches anyway. So it's like just get yourself down the court and start to be. You know what I mean? Like. I'm not too worried about that kind of stuff. Like me, I'm way more worried about the idea of why does it not feel like we value a backup center, like a guy like Montrezl Harrell? Not to say like I understand the market and like maybe a guy like Montrez doesn't want to come to San Antonio, but are you telling me that there isn't anybody else on the market that just has size that can be a backup center, a legit backup center? Every team that we face that has 2 options at the 5 puts one of them against Yak and puts the other one when Yak is sitting down. And it's like we're the only, I won't say the only team, but it just feels so often that like we have one center on our team. That's how it feels. Jock does not feel like a center. He doesn't play like a center. Zach doesn't play like a center. You know what I mean? It just feels like we're plugging a hole, and that's not a long-term solution. So I don't know, and maybe they know that. Maybe that's not their long-term solution, but just watching it every night, it's frustrating.
Yeah, Juan, do you have anything to add to what Chris was saying?
I had a lot of the same points with Zach Collins. I feel like he came out, he like played a little strong like those first couple of games, and then after that it was just like kind of like settled down, and you're like, okay, well maybe this isn't quite right, or this isn't quite what we need. Exactly like how he said, like as a backup 5. I was hoping that we would have seen him as a 4 already, next to I guess even like Jock or Jakob. I feel like we had Drew still when Zach started to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like just get a look and just see like what you got, like size wise, if you can handle it. Because there were times, where like teams would like run around us or do whatever, and you feel like, oh my gosh, our bigs can't keep up. But like, what's different than like having 4 tiny little dudes out there next to Zach Collins, and then they're just switching around everything anyways and just going right through you in the half court. And it's like,
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're putting
so
ourselves in those mismatches anyway, so why not just try to be bigger? Just at least so that when they break you off or whatever, you got somebody standing there, or at least you have a chance to get a defensive rebound in a clutch situation or something. You know what I mean? So like those are the things that bug me, and it's like, or if you know that we don't have a replacement for Jakob when he's on the bench, well then you're gonna have to like make 2 people equal 1, because we do the opposite. We make Jakob play essentially the responsibilities out there like as if he's a power forward and a center. I don't know how many times I see him have to step up to a guy, to step up to a driver to give a contest, and then have to turn around and find the center and box him out, or something like that, where he's got to do double responsibility. So how about on the second unit we flip it and we have 2 guys doing those? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're committed to having Jock Landau at your 5, then put Zach at the 4. And have both of them be the anchor, or both of them try to be our defensive front. So I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of whatever our game plan is when it comes to just the down low. And maybe they know 100% like we are going to be looking to bolster this via free agency or draft or whatever. But even then, it's like, and I know you got to play to your personnel kind of, but it's like, have a philosophy that's like we're gonna value this position, and even though the position isn't as strong yet, we're still gonna put value in it, knowing we want to get it better later. So I don't know. It just feels like right now we're willingly putting ourselves in that bad position. You know what I mean? Uh, it kind of feels more so now that we just called up Weiskamp or guaranteed Weiskamp and Kcock's contracts, and then brought in two other guys. Which, Jake, you could probably speak to those guys more than I can. I didn't see them play in Austin, any of that stuff. But I swear, as soon as I saw that they guaranteed them, I was like, okay. So we had this whole talk last week about exploring options for big men on the buyout, and or you know what I mean, with free agents and all that, or just maybe there is an Austin guy or something, or G League guy or something. So they make those calls to guarantee, and then like maybe like an hour later they tweet out saying that they were signing these other Austin guys. So I go to look, and it was like 6'6", 6'7". I'm like, oh, okay. So that it just feels like we have committed, right? And so like I'm not overall like pleased with it. I know it's going to be pretty rough to watch for the next month.
Yeah, right. And to like wrap that into like the player value, it definitely sounds like y'all had these expectations for these guys, but they kind of haven't met them all the way there,
It's
even
not
like our
really
team.
expectations in there like failing to meet them. It's just like the position that Zach is playing at, and then Jock's like, yeah, maybe I guess you could say the expectation of I wanted Jock to be more of like a imposing player, and be able to like space the floor on offense, but also be a big.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say that as an
it's
expectation.
it's not unrealistic to say that, because we brought him in at the same time of having a guy like Drew Eubanks, and so the perception is he's gonna do the things that Drew does, aka be energy, play physical, do this. The only difference is this guy's gonna shoot, and he can space. So like that was the expectation. You know what I mean? It's like we want you to do everything that our third backup guy did plus more.
Yeah.
And I get
Yeah.
it. He's still it's his first year, right? And first year in a new league too. So maybe we just have to wait. But again, even so, he's not center material for me. I mean, maybe I guess at the end of the day, if he's our third string center, then it is what it is. But
Right. Yeah, no, and that's like I guess like the point that I was saying is like even like the fact that like you're talking about the Zach Collins is like they just don't like our team's not putting them in the position to get their value up in that sense as well,
agreed.
And so in that aspect, Zach Collins' value has like lowered a little bit. Jock is playing his position, and his value I feel like has gotten lowered. To be more positive, I think like Trey Jones's value has raised over the course of this year, because we've been able to see him in this backup point guard position, and he's had his moments where he takes it and like he takes his opportunities and proves it, So I think he's an under the radar guy that has raised his value. Lonnie's definitely been the more controversial take of whether or not his value's up there, his value's lower. He's very on and off right now, or throughout the season, but he's had a good stretch this last month, and so it's like, where does that put Lonnie now? Where do we put him? Are we? I think I was one of the people that was like, oh, I'm okay with giving Lonnie $8 million a year, but now with the way that he's playing, he's fighting for 12, 13 a year, So where does that put y'all? Where do y'all feel about that? How do y'all feel about seeing Lonnie being put up in this value? Comparatively to the beginning of the season.
Well, I mean, he's been on a great stretch, like you said, and last night a little less so, right? I don't have his totals. Let me see. Lonnie last night was at 5 points in 18 minutes, 0 assists, 0 rebounds. So I mean, it's kind of that was last night, yeah. So I mean, but also if you think about last night's game, was there ever a moment where you could draw back to right now where you felt him having anywhere near the same aggressiveness as he had the last, a handful of games? So
the one time he wet a jumper over Miles Bridges, and then I didn't see him for the rest of the game.
He kind of like broke him down off the dribble a little bit.
Yeah, right in the mid range.
Yeah, exactly. So like and maybe some of that is the length of Charlotte and all of that, but I mean it really is so far what we've been seeing is it's directly tied to his mental, right, and his aggression and like whatever mindset he's gonna have. So like, if he can keep that up, he's playing really good. I do want to like point out, I've been seeing a lot of people like talking about Lonnie obviously on Twitter and everything like that, and people saying like, oh, he's showing right now like that that he really wants to be that he wants to get a new contract from the Spurs. And I just want to remind you guys that like he might like maybe he's not. Maybe he's just playing because he wants to have a good contract for himself. And maybe that might not even be with us. You know what I mean? But also like that's okay if he's self-motivated to do that no matter what team he's on. That's totally fine. Then it becomes our position as a team to prioritize him or not. You know what I mean? But I agree with you. Just that the fact that his value is rising. This whole time, I was never trying to dip his value into like, okay, we need to pay him like 7 million, or sorry, like like minimum money or something like that, where it's kind of disrespectful. But yeah, I would say anywhere from that 8 to 12 range right now is fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, right? Like he's played well. He's played better. Um, it's it's always consistency. It's always going to be the topic with this guy. But you see him in a 6-man type of role. You see what his production can be, and now you can kind of base like, all right, Lonnie, like we know like what you can be. We know we want you on the team for this role, and yeah, maybe that he's got comfortable. Now it's been after the deadline as well that the 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 roles have kind of been a little bit more defined, and he's more comfortable in that aspect. Just the same way we were talking about Zach and Jock and the way they fit. Whatever the case was, he had been playing better. But I think you can still like if people want to say like his value was bottom tier, he was playing terrible, shooting 30%, less than 30% from three. Then he has this stretch. You don't just jump all the way up. He just raised it a little bit. He's not at the top. He's not just like crazy jumping. You could still like value him right there in the middle and say, yeah, you're just this player who's a tad bit inconsistent. I've always said for the last 2 years, like he's a streaky shooter, anyways. He's a get hot type of guy, and if he was hot this last week, then you take it. But I feel like you could still value him, like you guys were saying, like around that 10 mil range. And look at his contemporaries. He got Josh Richardson on his team now. The money he's making, he's a 3-and-D type of guy. And if Lonnie has more on offense, but not that defense, and they're still the same value type of player, in my eyes. They just give you different types of game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I liked what I saw from Lonnie, and Jake like touched on Trey. Trey's value, I think, yeah, is I guess raised. I don't know if you can really be like lower or like than what he was last year. He was just a third string point guard. So the fact, yeah, that he's come out and played and shown like he can be a rotational player is just like how Jake said, more than enough. Exactly what you needed from a backup point.
Yeah.
Especially that second round value. Even though me and Jake always joke about like, he would have been our 29th, 30th pick right there at the end of the first round, anyways, just like a DeJounte, Corey Joseph, Derek White. Like he was that pick for us. We just got him a little bit later. I agree with Jake. Like the Trey Jones has raised his value enough to show like I can be on this team if you'll have me as a backup point.
Yeah.
I do still think he's a limited because of his shooting. As far as like the options we have with like my idea for next year's lineups would be like the 1, 2, and 3 would be DeJounte, Devin, Keldon, and then off the bench like Primo, Lonnie, and then a 3. But if you put Trey, Primo, Lonnie, or Trey, Lonnie, Primo, you know what I mean? Like we kind of get back into that. And if you have Doug, then you have Doug at the 4. It's like a smaller lineup, and yeah, they can get out and run again, and there could be shooting. I still think that lineup would be fine if Trey, Primo, Lonnie, if Lonnie can get his shooting decent. But if
Yeah.
not, then you're right back to like no shooting. Unless you keep Doug and play him at a backup 4.
Yeah,
And
or you're hoping that Primo really starts to take that next step with his offensive production, which to be honest, I feel like they are going to ask him to, especially keeping Trey around. Like for the longest time, it felt like Derek White was the other point guard. But at the same time, if you really think about it, was he our second point guard when they never really treated him like that? They just put him next to DJ the whole time, right? So they were really positioning like Primo and Trey, right? Well, it does seem like Primo is going to pass up Trey, you know what I'm saying? So like I think they are just going to ask Primo to step into that, like basically like a two guard, and we're gonna bring your point guard abilities along, and we're just gonna ask you to be to be off ball and to be comfortable in those positions. But yeah, same thing with Trey. He's gotten to the point where it's like, all right, if you had to think of a scenario where we had to miss DeJounte Murray for a handful of games, do you feel comfortable giving more responsibility to a guy like Trey Jones? And like, the answer is yes at this point, right? Like he can manage a game. He can guide your team in those ways. And obviously he's not going to bring the offensive production, but that's not what you're going to ask him to do. So yeah, a guy like him is good. Go ahead.
And in that way, the way I like see it too, I kind of see it like Trey and DeJounte's games aren't like one for one like mirrors of each other, but like DeJounte, I've always said, is a playmaking point guard. He's not a scoring point guard. So to have that, like, what, I don't know what the word is, if you guys can help me out, but like like DeJounte to Trey, and if you had to replace DeJounte for a couple games for injury or whatever the case, Trey steps in. It's like the same game, right? He's not disrupting the offensive unit,
Yeah.
because he's a playmaker. Trey is just gonna go out there and do his job, and yeah, DeJounte will get you buckets here and there when they're needed, and Trey might not be able to do that. But like the aspect of like, I'm gonna hound you on defense, I'm gonna set my guys up on offense. Like
yeah, you could run similar things. The only thing that you wouldn't be able to have is like if a play breaks down, DeJounte could also find that outlet of like, oh well, I can just get to my offensive move right here, and Trey would just have less of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
but
I
at the same time,
like in the NFL, like if your quarterback, like you don't want like a pocket pass your quarterback, and then your backup's like a scrambling, and now your like whole game plan is like has to be shifted, and like there's value, in like that, like nothing having to change from starting point guard to backup point guard.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I maybe the word you're looking for is consistency.
Yeah.
Like just in the sense of just like, yeah, like you're consistently for 48 minutes having that true point guard that can set up their players and has the court vision to do what they need to do to make sure that the guys in a sense have a brain on that court for all 48 minutes. The thing to me is also that like Trey also adds a little bit of stuff that not a lot of other people do. Trey and Josh are like the two guys that I see the most with that off ball movement. Those are the two guys that I see like when they're on the court, they're looking to see where they can cut or where they can slide. Josh more on like the sliding for the 3 points and Trey with the cutting, and it's stuff like that to me where it's like, I don't ever see DJ do that. Lonnie does not do that. Devin does, but not to the extent that Trey and Josh do. KJ did it in Charlotte, but I had like that was a night where KJ was just on something. I don't really see KJ necessarily run around the way that he was doing in Charlotte,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you said about like the cuts, like it kept us in the game. Trey's cuts against Sacramento in the fourth quarter, like he was finding opportunities. I think he even had at least one like opportunity for an and one, finishing with contact and stuff. So like he does provide value on the offensive end, just in slightly different ways, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it is nice to just see that like our guards individually have all like raised their value, even if the team hasn't necessarily seen success. There's been moments throughout the entire season where you see these guys and you're like, oh, this is what I could see this guy doing all 82 games next year. I could see Devin adding this to his game next year. I could see Lonnie adding this. I could see Trey adding this, stuff like that. And I hope that Trey kind of adds a jumper. I hope that he ends up being able to space the floor just a little bit more.
He needs something. Right now, it feels like he doesn't have it. It feels like he's showing us that it doesn't have it. You know what I mean? Like the way he catches the ball on any kind of perimeter, it's like he has zero intention of shooting. You know what I mean? And it's like we need something. We need at least one move.
I was gonna say, as far as like reevaluating, in that sense, just like to your topic, Jake, I reevaluate Devin's defense. I feel like we overrated it. I am still a big believer. Like Devin can be like a really good player, a really great player. Like the tools are there, the potential is there, and I still think he had like a little bit of like the Derek White, like he knew exactly when to like go and like help on defense and like go like Derek would go and like smack an alley oop out of the way and like just come out of
Yeah.
nowhere and do stuff. I feel
Very,
like
very like instinctual.
yeah, and I feel like Devin was doing things like that, but now that he's like been in the starting lineup, he's always reaching, he's always getting called for like little fouls like on drives. He can't ever keep a guy in front of him. Like not as much as like I expected him to just lock somebody up. Like that to be his calling card. Um
And
so I
go ahead.
well I was just gonna say, so I going to like just bring my idea of him as like a defensive stopper, down. He's not Derek White's level. I know Devin's a baby still, you know what I mean? But just like the drop off, you could just tell. Like when DeJounte and had Derek next to him, most of the time you just let Derek go guard their best guy because he could and he would stop them. He would disrupt everything. There's that game, ironically, against Boston where like Jason Tatum was posting up, tried to do a little fadeaway. Derek just slapped the ball right out of his hands. And then we're
Mhm.
off and running. Pretty sure we scored. And then, like, late in the game, Jalen Brown's coming full speed down the court, and Derek White just takes the charge. Like, Devin hasn't been doing, like, those type of things. And it's kind of been, like, I guess, like, I'm spurned because I still hate the fact that we gave away Derek. And we don't even play Josh. We don't play Romeo Langford. And it's like, we replaced him with Devin, and it's just so noticeable to me. Like we're missing that defense in that position now. It's
Yeah.
like it's a job. It's been a drop off. It's just been noticeable to me, and I think Devin can get there. I know he's still just so young, and just like Primo, like he kind of gets thrown around sometimes, like just by bigger guys. And but that's just I wanted to say like reevaluating. I like
Yeah.
Yeah.
just my expectations of his defense, bring it back down a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe he is making an adjustment because when you're on the bench, I know I've heard like Manu and I'm trying to think of I think I've heard somebody else kind of say the same thing about like when you come off the bench, you get a chance to kind of sit and watch and kind of see and be like, okay, I see how he's playing this part. Oh, I see this. So then when it's your turn to show up, you have it's not just the game plan or the tape you watch, it's the stuff you're seeing right now, right in front of you. And maybe he's having to readjust to like, okay, I don't get that opportunity anymore to kind of settle into a game and then go and make my impact. It's like we need that impact right away. You know what I mean? So, hopefully we just see continued improvement and continued like comfortability with him on that starting unit.
Right. And one thing Juan is if there's one thing that it just shows, because I think Devin's size, Devin's like the build, the frame he's got has the tools to be a defensive stopper, like we're saying. But it just kind of shows that like a guy like Derek was just that smart. He was just that high IQ of a player that
Well, that's what I'm saying. I had Devin right up there with him. That's
right,
that's where
right.
that's what my
Um
expectations were.
and to me it's just like you said, though. It's just like you said, he's still a baby. He wasn't the 24-year-old coming out of college kind of thing. Like he's got plenty of time to learn, just like how Derek did things, and plenty of time for him to pick up what Derek did and start doing that for himself. um but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying in terms of reevaluating how he has looked this season. It's yeah, I get that, but I think for me, I could still have the expectations that he can still become a very good defensive player for us.
He'll get there.
Yeah. Uh, but we finally, like I said, we finally got what these guys look like. We've been able to reevaluate them. We've been able to see a whole 60 games of what these guys can look like. Well, now we got 4 games, part of a 7-game homestand to look forward to. Starting off with the Lakers, then going after the Lakers, we play against Toronto, followed by Utah with the back-to-back playing against Indiana. So 4 games this week, 4 teams that I'm 3 of them I'm excited to see us play against. One of them I just want us to whip and not have to worry about it at all after Monday. I mean, so guys, how do y'all feel about this week going forward?
Well, first off, LeBron we're going against the Lakers on Monday. LeBron just went off for like 56. What was it? Uh, against Golden State.
52 or 54, I think.
Oh,
But
okay, yeah.
either way,
He had a 50-point game against Golden State. So that's outrageous. The the last week we did this the podcast, we were talking about, oh well, John Morant just got out his 40-point game against the Chicago Bulls, so hopefully he got that out of his bag, and then he dropped 50 on us. So it's like it's frustrating because it's like we're running into these guys who are kind of like have had a good game or two right before, and they might carry that right back into like against us. Um,
yeah, and because we talk about how we don't necessarily make our opponents feel uncomfortable at times that we should, we play right into their hands.
Exactly. So that's something to think about. Now, the Lakers outside of LeBron have been pretty poor, but it's just, again, the type of team we are, that defensively, it's the perfect game for them to just all get rolling. And that could be a scary game. Um, but like outside of that, like I don't know. I just feel like you got Pop's record coming up, and you got this. You just got to start off with this game against the Lakers. You got to worry about keeping LeBron from going off. Uh, the Toronto, Utah, Indiana. I'm not too like crazy worried about anybody. I'm not too high or too low on any of those teams. But as far as like the way we have been playing, we just went 0-3 against Memphis, Sacramento, and Charlotte. It's kind of hard to be like optimistic about this week, especially if you think, oh, we should be able to take care of the Lakers. They're reeling, and then it's like, oh well, LeBron just scored 50 something. Like he could come back and just easily have a 30-point game and like 30-point triple double. That's kind of, I guess you could kind of tell, like just from how last week went for me, that gloom, that disappointment, it's kind of bleeding into my viewpoint for this week.
Yeah, you're talking about yeah, like that gloom and all that kind of stuff, but just wait until you see what Josh said for his week on the predictions. Uh, but I agree with you, man. I agree with you. It's very hard to like look into this week and be like, well, we can still cook LA. We can still beat Toronto. We can still beat Indiana. You were talking about not being worried. I still have a worry about Utah. No matter what people will say about like playoff success or whatever, they're still a good regular season team. And so that means that could be a decent L for us if we're not prepared for the likes of Donovan Mitchell, for the likes of Jordan Clarkson, Rudy Gobert. So I think Jordan Clarkson, I feel like he hasn't necessarily had like the best season in the world, but like in the games that we played against Utah, he like was doing his thing, like was powering through layups and like going crazy against us. So that's to me Utah.
Clarkson has played hard against San Antonio no matter what team he's been on.
Yeah. So it is a thing where it's just like I can never be too nonchalant with Utah. Utah will always be a team that I'll try to give my respects to, because they can kind of cook us on any given night.
The Spurs, like we have to take into account, like literally if the other team has one player who has the ability, then we just have to take them seriously. I mean, we've seen Houston beat us with Gordon single-handedly. We saw a game like last night where it was Terry Rozier who really like led their charge, who kept their fire going, and because they played sloppy like we did. I heard their announcers talk because I watched the feed was through them, right? And I heard them say something about the Hornets. This is how they play sometimes against lesser opponents. They also said something about playing down to their competition, right? So they saw us as a lesser team, but in actuality, we play about 500 basketball in terms of like the style of play or the quality of play, even though we've lost more. And so we're right there with them, right? And we were both teams just making the same mistakes a lot, right? But they had a guy like Terry who was able to kind of get them over the hump and kind of carry that team across. And so like everybody, each one of these teams has a guy who can do that, and it doesn't even have to really be their top guy. You know what I mean? So like, we just got to be ready for everybody. We got to be ready for everybody. I will say real quick, obviously Anthony Davis is is not back, right? He's off of his knee injury, or mid foot sprain, I think is what the official thing was. Yeah, because it was when he rolled that foot pretty bad. So that's kind of like the big one for the Lakers. So obviously, LeBron James is their focus. For Toronto, for today's game, the March the 5th, Fred VanVleet is questionable for today's game, as well as David Johnson, another point guard or a point guard, and then OG Anunoby, as of March 3rd, just 2 days ago, says is expected to be sidelined for at least 2 weeks with a finger injury. So there are some holes in that roster. They are a team who is right on that play-in range, I believe, for the Eastern Conference. So
we need Toronto to make the playoffs to get their pick.
What are you saying, Juan? What are you saying?
Well, no, I'm saying like Chris was talking about like they're like a play-in team, and I'm talking about like as like Spurs fans, like if they make the playoffs. I wasn't even talking about us losing that game.
So if they get a win this week, that's good for them.
We need them to beat Cleveland today, so that we can beat them and it even out. That's what we need.
There we go.
But yeah, so they have some holes. Utah, Mike Conley is out. It doesn't give a reason. It just says Mike Conley's out. But has he been out for like the longest time already?
I feel like he has been out for a good minute.
It's hard to tell sometimes, or like there's just been times in his career, right, where he's just missed big stretches. And then also Spurs legend Juancho Hernan-Gomez is day to day.
No.
and then for India. I mean, well, another conversation.
He's gonna be in the Adam Sandler movie, is he not?
Yeah, he is.
That's like all the that's all the money that we could have had from just having Juancho Hernan-Gomez on our team.
Sure. So for Indiana, Miles Turner is as of the end of February 23rd. It says Turner is still a couple weeks away from returning, with a foot injury. TJ Warren does not have a timetable to return from his injury. TJ McConnell is doesn't have a cast on his wrist anymore, but he's weeks away from coming back. And then they have a bunch of day-to-day guys: Chris Duarte, Goga Bitadze, said that wrong, and then Lance
Goga Bitadze.
Bitadze, thank you. And then Lance Stevenson is also day-to-day. So, we are relatively healthy, right? You know what I mean? Which is a blessing throughout a season like this, right? So we have opportunities, and I know it's tough to feel that, like you guys are saying, when you see the team stacked up like this after the week we just had. It doesn't feel you even put it as the name of the thing. It's a team tank prevails. It almost feels a little bit self-defeatist in terms of where we are for the week. I do not approve of this title. First of all, I just want to say I was not around when the title was decided. But yeah, so I mean, there are opportunities, right? There are opportunities to play well, to play together, to play well enough to get wins throughout this week. So.
Right. To those injury reports, one thing that very much I have not even thought about is how long TJ Warren has been injured, because it's been a long time now. If I'm not mistaken, that's like bubble, right? Like injury from the bubble that he got. He hasn't played at all in the 21 season.
Like, it seems like that's the last time that I remember like him producing, or at least producing to the point where they're talking about him. So maybe.
And so I do not know if I've heard anything about TJ Warren since the bubble, and that's crazy to me. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they still have. This will be our first chance to see Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield over there. Jalen Smith too, right? Jalen Smith was with Phoenix.
Yeah, he was with Phoenix, and now he's in Indiana.
So, and I'm not sure how much they play Jalen Smith, but I mean, still a different look to the Indiana Pacers than kind of what we've seen.
I'll say that the Indiana game is the one that I'm looking out for the most. That's the one I'm most excited for. I know Josh isn't going to be able to be on the pod, all that kind of stuff, but he's had a couple thoughts about Tyrese Halliburton versus Devin Vassell that at some point I want to get him back on the pod so that we can talk about that, so that we can get what Josh has to say about Tyrese. But I'm excited for this Saturday game because both Devin and Tyrese are starting now. and I want to see that matchup. I want to see, hopefully, I get to see the matchup of Devin Vassell versus Tyrese Halliburton, and not
Yeah.
like Devin or not DeJounte versus Tyrese.
And you guys all, like you and Juan and Josh, kind of have like stances where you stand on that conversation. Like I've heard you guys talk about it kind of for the past, like, I don't know what, 3 or 4 weeks or something, almost like
Yeah.
sprinkled in. So this will be a good opportunity to like add some more points to whoever's point of view, right? So maybe next week we can try to have one of those conversations. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
it'll be a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And other than that, like, I mean, I think this week's gonna be an exciting week to look out for. I want us to beat LA. I'm excited for us to play against Indiana. That's like my 2 big things. Do y'all have any type of games to look out for? Games that you're excited for? Stuff that you need to see us do this week?
Things that we need to see us do. I need for us to not let a guy like Dwight Howard come in on the second unit and just punk us. That's what I need.
Yeah. My outlook on this week is just like, if you could win against Utah and be like, okay, they're the best team out of all 4 of these teams we're gonna play this week, and you could lose to a team like, I could just see us losing to Indiana or the Lakers. You know what I mean? Like just the way we played all year. We're so up and down. We're so inconsistent. Like, it's hard to predict. Are we gonna be able to take care of business against these bad teams? And most of the time we get up for those games and we play them close against better teams. I think we went like 0-3 against Phoenix this year, but all those games were like by like 5 points or less. Like, that's the number 1 team in the league with 50 wins already. And like, our team gets up, we play these games, and then for like some of these games we just kind of come out flat, and like we do like what we did against Charlotte, where we gave up the lead right before the end of the 3rd quarter, and guess what? We're like 0-30 after losing after the 3rd quarter. And I mean, what did you guys think about that? That was such a crazy like turnaround. We had the ball with 24 seconds or 20 seconds left, up 2, and then we end up being down going into the 4th quarter, and then the streak continued. We're like winless.
I mean, yeah, it's
0-32.
just a continuation of what I said earlier. It's just like it's the little things like that, right? It's the rudimentary things. It's the fundamental things. It's like at some point, the lessons, they need to start sticking, and so you ask like, how do I feel about it? I feel like at this point, it's okay to be disappointed in your team for doing things like that. You know what I mean? We are a young team and we're a learning team, but you can't point at something that should be an October lesson in February, you know what I'm saying, or March. Like there does need to be accountability for growing within a season. You know what I mean? Because we all have ideas of what we want the team to be and what we think it could be, a year or 2 down the road. But you don't get to those points without prioritizing every step of the way. You know what I mean? And that's something that we hear Pop say all the time. We can't skip steps. So it's like, I'm still waiting on those kind of things to iron themselves out. You know what I mean? And so it is disappointing when we see those things stack up.
I guess I have to say, like, what I'm hoping for, looking forward this week is like, make a change, like do something, fight, figure it out. Don't let those things happen. Don't blow a lead right before the end of the 3rd.
And it's seemingly, it's way easier to say it when you're not having to play the game and we're just sitting talking about it. But like, it is easy to think about like, all right, just bring it back to basics, man. Like, put an emphasis today. I do not want a single offensive rebound in the whole first half for this team. That might be unrealistic to say that you want 0, but if you put it in your head that you want 0, you're gonna push for 0. And then if they end up with 4 or 3, and then it's like, okay, good. Did you make an effort? Did it feel like it worked for the most part? Good. All right. Did they get 3? Sure, that's fine. Then let's keep moving. You know what I mean? Like I want to see. I want to be able to see, because we don't get to hear what their focuses are. We don't get to hear their game plans, but you can see what people's emphasis is when they get out there. You know what I'm saying? You can tell what people are trying to be aggressive for, what they're kind of trying to concede a little bit, depending on who's on the floor or anything like that. So I want to see, like what you're saying, I want to see concerted effort on the things that matter, man. Like don't fight your teammate for a rebound and then the other team gets the ball. That's dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Man.
dumb.
That's I don't know what that was about this last game with the Charlotte, man. I feel like I
Yeah.
saw it like at least 5 times with DJ and whoever our big was out there on the court, and I was just like, "Yo, what the heck?" And it,
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, that actually happened where they fight for a rebound, and it just goes to the other team, and I was like, "Oh no!" Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
like no way, guys. Um, yeah, I guess if there's a specific thing for me to look out for, it's the don't be losing by the end of the third quarter. Don't be losing by the end of the third quarter. I don't need to see us losing by the end of the third quarter and then lose a game again.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
32, 32 games already.
trends
Don't need
are
to see it again.
there are opportunities to buck trends, and we had an opportunity last night, and we've probably had like countless, or numerous
Yeah.
opportunities throughout this year. Another thing is just like Toronto, not to diss on their roster or anything like that, but if they have no Van Vliet, like who's leading them? I mean, Scotty Barnes and Pascal. Like, do we have enough for those two guys? You know what I mean? I'm hoping the answer is yes. It in my opinion, it should be yes. Scotty Barnes is a very exciting player, but he's not all the way there yet. You know what I'm saying? He's still there's still room to make him feel uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? So like that I want to see that. And
But
now
if there's
I'm just scanning our opponents and trying to see like each game, is there something that I would like to see? Go ahead.
if there's one thing that I will say with Toronto, it's that outside of a 6'1" Fred Van Fleet, that team has a ton of size, and
Mhm.
that's how they killed us last time.
Yeah,
Because I
true.
think they ran a lineup of like I wanna say it was Precious Achua, but I don't know who their five was out there. But it was definitely like a big man, Chris Boucher, Pascal Siakam at the 3 and Scotty Barnes at the 2, and they just had all the size in the world out there against us.
Mhm.
But at the same time, Fred Van Fleet was going off, and it was just like we couldn't do anything against Toronto that night.
It's way easier too because a guy like him can now just hide behind the big guys and shoot the ball, and he's a great shooter. So I mean, like the part of that game plan won't be there for them. You know what I mean? I don't think
Right.
Unless they have some other. I'd have to go look at like who their backup like point guards are going to be. They have Delano Banton, who's a 6'7" point guard. I never heard of him. Malachi Flynn, David Johnson, and that's it in terms of their point guard. You know what I mean? So and then shooting guard. Oh God, I'm not even gonna try this one. I would say it's so bad. Gary
Is it
Trent
like that
Jr.
CV?
Gary Trent Jr. Yeah, SVI.
Yeah.
Gary Trent
He's
is
crazy.
a guy who can do what Van Fleet does and shoot at a high volume, shoot very accurately, be aggressive, know when to pick his spot. So like, yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's definitely gonna be a tough week.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, I don't think there's anybody out here that I could tell you that I'm like, we got to just get in and get out and get a W. It's like no, we gotta look at these guys and be prepared. Can't be going any game unprepared within these next 4. But guys, I'll restate these teams that we're gonna play against, and then we can get right into the predictions. So we'll be playing against the Lakers on Monday at 7:30. Then still part of the homestand, by the way. This is all 4 games out of a 7-game homestand that be playing against the Lakers Monday. Then we stay home to play against the Raptors on Wednesday. To stay home and play against Utah on Friday with the back-to-back of staying home and playing Indiana on Saturday. So, guys, what are your weekly predictions? Juan, I'll let you go off first.
I'm gonna say 2-2. I think we'll grab back-to-back wins right here in LA and Toronto, and that way Pop will be able to celebrate and we'll get this done. We'll get it done during this homestand no matter what, but like it'll be at home, in front of fans. But I'm gonna say 2-2. I know, like, yeah, we talked about like the Toronto, um, like their size and whatnot, but I just think that if we win against LA, the guys are going to come out firing for Pop, and then at the same time, I also see us just immediately just stumbling because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And
And Pop's the kind of be like, oh, we didn't play well in the first quarter. All right, we're gonna lose this game. So then,
yeah. So I'm just gonna predict 2-2, and then that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, Chris, where you at?
I'll probably have to say the same. Not really. I can't really speak to any team and say like these are the two wins we're gonna get, but I'll just say that it's a tough week, and so if you can survive a tough week by going 2-2, and kind of and keeping yourself in that play-in race, it would be beneficial to us if we could beat the Western Conference teams. I guess not really, because these two teams aren't really like. Well, I guess the Lakers obviously is
Well,
the one.
Lakers are. The
The
Lakers are.
Lakers is the one.
That's that's the one game that I think that we have to win as well.
And I agree. And I agree. Like there's always a strong want, and in this case, a need to beat the Lakers. So, one of those games, I will say, like we need to beat the Lakers. I hope that one of our victories is against the Lakers. But when it comes to like Toronto, Utah, Indiana, yeah, right. It could go up and down on any of these. It's just literally a flip of a coin at that point. It's a flip of a coin of like what kind of team are we going to be on that given night, and on a good night, on a good flip of the coin, we can compete with any of these teams. On a bad night, our deficiencies show, sometimes in the worst way. So I will say 2-2. I'll say that's what we need to kind of stay afloat for this week. And the only one that I really that we need is that LA win.
Okay. So. Yeah, no, like you said, like I was just saying, I think that the LA win is the one that we need the most. The one thing that I will say, I feel like this team has been pretty decent when it comes to bounce backs. Like when it comes to like hey, we dug ourselves in a little bit of a hole. We like just played bad these last stretch. We got to play good this next stretch. And I think our guys do a good job of seeing where they made their errors and bouncing back and having a good week. So I'm actually going to change it up on y'all. I'm going to say that I am going more positive and going 3-1 on the week. As you can see, like I was saying earlier with Josh's prediction, Josh said we're going undefeated this week, which I'm glad he's got all that positive energy from from us, because there's definitely something to be said about going undefeated against one of the top teams in the West, and then definitely 3 teams that could give us trouble. So
yeah,
and we say that, and like Indiana's got a worse record than us, and we Toronto's like we said, like they're they have like just like above the plan. LA's 28-35. Like we say, like these teams can give us trouble, and they're bad teams as well, and they're not great or perfect. Even Utah's not like up there with like the Golden State and the Phoenix this year. They're kind of middle of the pack in the West, and
yeah, it's just tough though, because it's like you want to bet on your guys, and we're gonna support them and root for them to win all 4 of these games, but you just don't at this point of the season, right? It's like, what kind of Spurs are we going to get? You know what I mean? And so it's tough. I will say though, like kind of what Jake was saying about like bouncing back or whatever. I am happy to see that we're going to be at home until the 18th of March. Like that makes me feel good about just them being able to have a little bit of some practice time, of some rest time at home at their respective houses. Like and just a little bit of some time to kind of settle down just a tiny bit. And like I was saying, if we can go 2-2 this week, if we can keep our heads like right above water for this week, the next week, and we'll be able to, talk about it next week, but we got Minnesota, we got OKC, and we got the Pelicans, which are important for 2 reasons. Those teams are around our seeds. We need to win those games, but also those teams, they're around our seeds. They're winnable. They're more winnable games out the gate than like a Utah looks, than like a Toronto or Indiana looks. You know what I mean? So like, or at least in my eyes. So if we can hold tight this week, we can maybe finish this 7-game homestand with a decent amount of wins. You know what I mean? Or with a positive outlook on how we're gonna finish the year out. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I really wish that that these weeks were like flipped. I wish that we were playing Minnesota, OKC, New Orleans this week, because I'm gonna be back in SA. I'm gonna be back in San Antonio next week. So that's just one of those things, man. That my spring break, if only I would have been able to go watch like a Toronto or Utah play But I'll probably see what I can do to go to like the OKC game or the New Orleans games. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
But yeah, no.
I,
Go
I
go ahead.
I was gonna say one last thing before we end. The Chris was talking about our seeds. The right now the Kings also are 24 wins. They're 42 losses, so they have two more losses than us. We're 24 and 40. They're 24 and 42.
Mhm.
But depending on how this week goes, like if the Kings pass us up, we'll be bottom 3 in the West. Um, but like if we can win and catch up some games, the Pelicans are 27 and 36. We're 3.5 games behind them at the 10th seed. So three and a half games behind them to try to even get into like the playing games. That's just something to look forward to. Like, if Jake had the title of the week, Team Tank Prevails, those people like really like wanting us to lose. If we fall behind Sacramento in this, we're bottom 3 in the West. We won't catch up to the Thunder or the Rockets in losses like at all. But we could be like as much as the 11th seed, or we could be as low as the 13th in the West. Like so, just depending on how this week goes, and that's something to look for. I don't know about like the East and stuff like that. I know the Pacers. Yeah, the Pacers got a worse record than us. So if we really fall below the Kings this week, and if that Pacers win and they beat us, we can end up being a bottom 5 team in the league,
Yeah.
and
A-
that's
and then looking just a little bit further, I mean, Jake, you're talking about like maybe trying to see a game when you're here in town. I would say that our season could be decided as it normally is. It usually comes down to a division game, but usually it's like the last week of the season or something. But our season can be decided when we play New Orleans right
yeah.
there. Because if
Yeah.
we don't beat them, we don't play them again at all. If we don't beat them right there, then I mean, are we
We'll play
catching New
them.
Orleans?
Yeah, if we don't beat New Orleans on the 18th, we'll have our rematch on the 26th, and that is
So,
it.
so
I
okay,
think.
so then we do play them twice before the season's done.
Yes.
Yes, you are correct. We do play them twice. Okay, it can still take a big step in either direction, left or right, with that game against New Orleans. So I don't know, maybe you try to check that one out.
Even three games against Portland, who's another team fighting for those
Three
playing
games against
spots.
Portland.
Yeah,
Three
yeah,
games, three
big
games
big
against
time.
Yeah.
Portland,
So yeah, to that
two
point, like
games against Minnesota. Let's see. Yeah, two games against Minnesota, just a game against Memphis, but Memphis has already passed. Dallas is our last game of the season. So that's another team that's in like the lower end of the playoffs right now. Those are
Yeah.
just like those teams
But
that I'm
but
like
but
seeing
but
right now.
really, it's the Thunder, it's the two times against New Orleans, it's the Rockets once, and then it's those three
yeah.
against Portland. Those are the big ones.
So this season again, like that's the whole point of me bringing it up. This season can still go so like Chris said, like one way or the other, like to the play-in. Like we could skyrocket up if we just beat up on all those bad teams, and it could also just go like you lose a game against like Portland or New Orleans, and you're just kind of your chances
Yeah,
of
they're
pushing
just
like
they're just able to hold you off. You know what I mean at
yeah
that point, and it sucks because we still have games to play.
yeah.
But that is kind of shaping. That is kind of like how this last little flurry is starting to shape itself out to be.
Yeah.
It's insane too because we're 16 games under 500. We're 24 and 40, and there's still such like an opportunity there to just make a run and try to compete. But
Hmm.
that I just want to keep pointing that out. I'm gonna keep trying to point out the standings and stuff every week we do this because we still have a chance to make a plan, and then at the same time we have a chance to be a top 5 pick, just like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this tweet from Eric Salinas, a person of Spurs Twitter, he had tweeted out that with the 18 games left, the Spurs are likely to end up with the 7th worst record if their remaining path isn't like directed towards either way. So if we don't just go completely losing the rest of the year, completely winning the rest of the year, we'll just end up on the same track, right? And with that, that gives us the 31.9% chance with the top 4 pick and a 7.5% chance at a first pick in the draft. So that's another thing, like Juan was saying, just to like kind of look out for that kind of stuff to see where the Spurs are in terms of the lottery odds, because yeah, I mean, if we do keep going the way that we're going, that's not terrible odds. But if we can push it up even further to get a playoff push, then we're lowering those odds. If we continue to lose, then that 31 can move up to like a closer to 35. So um, that's just that's one thing that we definitely got to keep looking out for in terms of how the Spurs are going to be playing and how it affects that future for this upcoming draft.
Yeah, and there is a I wish I would have thought ahead to have it shared or something, but there is a see if I can pull it up real quick. I think it might be Josh Paredes. There's somebody on Spurs Twitter who has been kind of keeping track of Toronto, Boston, Lakers, and basically all the picks that the Spurs are getting or that they've received over the past couple years, and it's just like a little spreadsheet. I'm scrolling my Twitter right now as I'm talking. It's just a little spreadsheet that kind of says this is the pick that we have from them. This is the highest possible like pick that it can land, and then also like this is where it's most likely to land. This is what we want that team to do as the season is finishing. So, for example, like when it came to the Lakers, like for them, it was just we just need the Lakers to keep losing because we need that pick to be as high as possible, and nothing really is gonna get in the way except for if they lose more, it helps us, right? So, here it is. Yeah, so it is Josh Paredes Paredes. So if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, like draft odds and the future through the draft and how our picks like materialize as the season kind of keeps moving forward, I would suggest following him and just kind of checking that out. He's been putting it out, I would say maybe like every 3 or 4 days or something, he'll update it. So like this last one came out 4 days ago, so maybe we'll get one today or Monday or something like that. But yeah, so it has the Toronto pick, it has our own first round pick, the Boston first round pick, and the LA second round pick. So anyways, I just wanted to shout him out because that's been helping me, just contextualize like if you want this pick that we have, like the best version of it, then you want to see Boston finish in this spot. So it's good to kind of just wrap your brain around some of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, before I wrap it up, do y'all have any lasting comments on this week at all?
Tough week, but I'm here to support every day. Stocks rising. Jakob, his stocks keep going higher every day, every game. We asked this guy to be our power forward and our center at the same time. It's nuts, but I appreciate his effort. So.
Yep, I am seeing people of Spurs Twitter also undervalue Jakob, and that is baffling to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He is the anchor to our team. If we did not have Jakob, we would be an 0-82 team.
Yeah, it's crazy the fall off that we see with him and or with him on and off the floor. Yeah, so So I didn't want to. We didn't really talk about him too much because he's been very consistent, right? But it just can't be overstated like how much we rely on him, and so the fact that you don't say his name very much, it just means that he's doing his job, which
exactly.
is we love him.
Yeah. And he's also a plus on offense now. He's nowhere near the Jakob that we used to know, where we're like, don't shoot that Yak. Now we're like, Papa Yak, heck yeah, let's go. So it's definitely one of those things that you love to see, that kind of stuff. But guys, I hope everybody enjoyed this. We do this podcast every week on Sundays at 10 a.m. where we go live to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Make sure that if you don't get to watch us while we're live, that you can watch us on all 4 platforms following our live with the VODs. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk Spurs basketball on the near daily. We love talking with and around the Spurs community, so do not be afraid to interact with us. We love having the interactions. But with that being said, guys, I hope y'all have a wonderful and blessed Sunday, and we are out.